Have you ever spent hours breaking your back in the hot sun, carefully digging beds and pulling weeds, only to end up with a sad, yellowing cucumber vine that gives you exactly 3 misshapen cucumbers before it dies? It is the ultimate frustration of the summer garden. Today, we are going to completely flip everything you thought you knew about vegetable gardening. I am going to share the ultimate lazy guide to growing cucumbers. And I promise you, by doing significantly less physical work, you are going to harvest full buckets of crisp, beautiful fruits every single day. The secret is not working harder, but working smarter, and letting the natural biology of the plant do all the heavy lifting for you. We are going to break down the exact steps to build a high-yield cucumber factory in your own backyard, and I guarantee that some of these methods, especially the pruning secret I will share later, will completely shock traditional gardeners. So, let us get started. Before we dive into the exact steps, we need to understand the true nature of the cucumber plant. Originally, cucumbers evolved in the hot, incredibly humid, and shaded environments of tropical forests in India. They are natural climbers that love warm air, rich organic material on the forest floor, and massive amounts of moisture. However, there is a catch. While they love water, their delicate root systems absolutely hate sitting in cold, flooded dirt. Think of a cucumber's energy like a fast-flowing river. If you guide the river properly through smart trellising and targeted feeding, it will carve out a magnificent path of explosive growth and fruit production. But if you block that energy with cold soil, heavy digging, or poor watering habits, the river stalls, turns into a stagnant swamp, and the plant simply gives up and dies. Our goal is to recreate that perfect tropical microclimate in your garden using lazy, hands-off methods. Let us talk about the very first step of your cucumber journey, which is choosing and preparing your seeds. Most gardeners simply rip open a packet and shove the dry seeds directly into the cold spring soil, hoping for the best. But this is where the first massive mistake happens. Cucumbers are tropical plants by nature, and they absolutely despise cold shocks. Instead of playing the lottery with direct sowing, try the pre-sprouting method using a warm, damp paper towel. You just lay your seeds on a moistened towel, fold it over, and place it inside a simple plastic bag. Keep it in a warm spot, perhaps above your refrigerator, where the temperature stays consistently cozy. Within just 48 hours, you will see tiny white taproots emerging. Now here is the real secret. Do not wait for those roots to get long and fragile. The moment you see a tiny white speck, which is usually after just 2 days, those seeds are ready to go into your starting pots. This simple trick guarantees a 100% germination rate and gives your plants a massive head start. It is like giving an athlete a running start before the starting gun even goes off. You will never waste time waiting for empty spots in your garden bed to sprout again. Let us move on to the actual garden bed, and here I have a controversial statement that might upset traditional gardeners. You need to stop digging and tilling your cucumber beds. For generations, we have been told that cucumbers need deeply loosened soil, so we break our backs turning the earth every single spring. But what we are actually doing is destroying the delicate underground web of beneficial fungi known as mycorrhizae. Think of these fungi as an extension of the cucumber root system, acting like tiny pipelines that deliver water and nutrients from deep within the earth right to the plant. When you till the soil, you chop these pipelines into millions of useless pieces. Instead of digging, try the lazy approach of simply layering organic matter on top of your soil. Just spread a thick layer of compost right on the surface. The earthworms will do the heavy lifting for you, pulling that rich organic material down into the soil and naturally aerating it without destroying the fungal networks. Your cucumbers will suddenly have access to a massive, undisturbed buffet of nutrients, and you will save yourself days of exhausting, back-breaking labor. This is the true definition of smart gardening. Now that we have established our no-dig bed, we must talk about the biggest yield killer of all time, which is planting too early. We all get that spring fever in late April or early May, and we rush to get our cucumber seedlings into the ground. But cucumbers suffer from a very specific problem called cold feet. Even if the daytime air feels wonderfully warm and sunny, the soil underneath might still be holding on to the winter chill. If a cucumber root touches soil that is colder than 60 degrees Fahrenheit, the plant immediately goes into a state of shock. It stunts the growth, the leaves turn a sad shade of yellow, and the plant essentially refuses to grow for weeks. To avoid this, you need to use the black plastic or dark compost trick. About 2 weeks before you plan to plant, cover your cucumber bed with a dark material to absorb the sun's rays and trap the heat in the soil. You want the earth to feel like a warm blanket before you even think about moving your plants outdoors. Patience is your greatest weapon here. A seedling planted 2 weeks later in properly warmed soil will easily outgrow and outproduce a seedling that has been shivering in cold dirt since early May. Waiting actually gets you to the harvest faster. Once your plants are safely in the warm ground, you need to apply the smart mulching approach. Bare soil is the absolute worst enemy of a healthy cucumber plant. When the hot summer sun beats down on unprotected earth, the moisture evaporates instantly, and the top layer of soil turns into a hard, impenetrable crust. This stresses the shallow roots of the cucumber immensely. But do not just use any mulch. The absolute best material for cucumbers is a thick layer of dried grass clippings mixed with a little bit of straw. Why grass clippings? Because as they slowly break down over the summer, they release a steady, gentle supply of nitrogen directly to the root zone. It is like setting up a slow-release feeding station that works completely on autopilot. Plus, this mulch acts as a sponge, holding on to moisture and keeping the soil cool during extreme heat waves. You want to apply a layer that is at least 3 inches thick, making sure to keep the mulch a few inches away from the actual stem of the plant to prevent rot. By doing this, you instantly eliminate the need for weeding, and you cut your watering chores in half. It is a lazy gardener's dream come true, and your plants will reward you with explosive, continuous growth. Let us address the most misunderstood aspect of cucumber care, which is how and when to water. Most people grab the hose, spray the whole garden from above for a few minutes until the topsoil looks wet, and call it a day. This surface watering is a guaranteed way to ruin your harvest. Cucumbers are basically 95% water, so they are incredibly thirsty. But they are also very prone to fungal diseases if their leaves stay wet. If you water from above, especially in the evening, you are just inviting powdery mildew to destroy your vines. Instead, you must switch to deep, infrequent watering directly at the base of the plant. Think of it like a deep soak rather than a quick shower. You want the water to penetrate at least 6 to 8 inches into the earth. This forces the cucumber roots to dive deep down to chase the moisture, creating a massive, resilient root system that can survive sudden heat waves. A shallow waterer gets shallow roots, which dry out and die the second the sun gets too hot. I highly recommend using a simple drip irrigation line or placing a specialized watering jug next to each plant. This delivers the water straight to the roots where it belongs, keeping your leaves completely dry and perfectly healthy. One of the most transformative things you can do for your cucumber yield is to get them off the ground. Letting your cucumbers sprawl all over the soil is an old-fashioned method that invites pests, disease, and misshapen fruits. When cucumbers lie on the wet earth, bugs have a free buffet, and the lack of airflow practically guarantees rot. We are going to use the vertical string trellis method, which is the exact same secret used by high-tech commercial greenhouses, but adapted for the lazy home gardener. All you need is a sturdy overhead support and some heavy-duty garden twine. You simply anchor the string to the base of the plant and tie the other end to your overhead support. As the cucumber vine grows, you gently wrap the main stem around the string. You do not even need to tie it. The plant will naturally hold on. This vertical method does three incredible things. First, it exposes every single leaf to maximum sunlight, supercharging the photosynthesis process. Second, it creates massive airflow, drying out the leaves quickly after morning dew and preventing fungal issues. And third, your cucumbers will hang straight down, giving you perfectly straight, clean, and blemish-free fruits that are incredibly easy to spot and pick. Now we come to a pruning secret that feels totally wrong the first time you do it, but it is absolutely essential for a heavy harvest. It is called establishing the blind zone. When your cucumber vine starts climbing your string, it will immediately try to produce tiny cucumbers and side shoots at the very bottom, right near the soil level. Your instinct will be to leave them alone, because you want cucumbers as soon as possible. You must fight this urge. You need to pinch off every single flower, every tiny cucumber, and every side shoot from the first 4 or 5 leaf nodes at the bottom of the plant. Basically, the first 18 inches of the stem should be completely bare except for the main leaves. Why on earth would we destroy perfectly good baby cucumbers? Because if the plant spends its early energy developing fruits at the bottom, it stops growing upward. The vine gets stunted early on. By removing these early distractions, you force all the plant's energy into building a massive, strong root system and a thick, powerful main vine. Once the plant passes that blind zone, it will explode with dozens of high-quality fruits. You are sacrificing 2 or 3 tiny, dirty cucumbers early on to gain buckets of pristine cucumbers later. Once you have successfully cleared the bottom blind zone, your cucumber plant is going to start throwing out side shoots from the main vine like crazy. If you leave these wild shoots alone, your plant will turn into a tangled, impenetrable jungle. It will produce hundreds of tiny yellow flowers, but very few actual cucumbers, because the energy is completely diluted across too many branches. Here is the smart, lazy way to handle this. We use the 1 leaf, 1 cucumber rule for side shoots. When a side branch grows out from the main stem, let it produce 1 flower and 1 leaf right past that flower. Then, simply pinch off the growing tip of that side branch. This stops the branch from growing infinitely long, but keeps the single cucumber and the 1 leaf needed to feed it. This method forces the plant to concentrate its energy on filling out that specific fruit instead of growing endless, empty vines. Your plant stays incredibly neat, manageable, and vertical while turning into a highly efficient fruit-producing machine. It takes only a few seconds per plant once a week, but this simple pinching technique is the difference between a frustrating jungle of leaves and a heavy, guaranteed daily harvest of perfectly sized cucumbers. Let us bust a massive myth about pruning cucumber leaves that circulates around gardening groups every single year. Many people think that cutting off healthy green leaves will somehow force more energy into the fruits or let more sun hit the cucumbers to ripen them. This is a complete misunderstanding of how the plant actually works. The leaves are the solar panels of your cucumber factory. They take in sunlight and manufacture the sugars that make your cucumbers grow big, crisp, and sweet. If you chop off healthy solar panels, you are literally starving your fruits. Cucumbers do not need direct sunlight on the skin of the fruit to ripen or turn green. They are not like tomatoes. In fact, cucumbers prefer to be shaded by their own leaves to stay cool and crisp. The only leaves you should ever remove are the ones that are entirely yellow, brown, or severely infected with disease. These old, dying leaves at the very bottom of the plant are no longer producing energy and are just draining resources. Snip those ugly ones off to improve airflow, but leave every single healthy green leaf exactly where it is. Your plant needs that massive canopy to power the tremendous growth required to fill up those buckets of fruit. As your vine reaches the middle of the summer and starts setting dozens of fruits at once, it is going to hit an energy wall. This is the exact moment when most gardeners see their cucumbers turning yellow, shriveling up, and dropping off the vine. The plant is essentially aborting the fruit because it does not have the fuel to finish the job. This is not a water issue, it is a potassium deficiency. During the heavy fruiting stage, cucumbers need an absolutely massive amount of potassium to pump water and sugars into the expanding fruits. To fix this instantly, we are going to use a simple, free resource from your fire pit, which is pure wood ash. Wood ash is essentially nature's supercharged potassium powder. Just sprinkle a handful of sifted, dry wood ash around the base of your plants, keeping it away from the stem, and water it in deeply. Alternatively, you can make a liquid feed by soaking the ash in a bucket of water for 2 days, creating a nutrient tea. This instantly delivers a massive rush of potassium directly to the root zone. You will see those tiny, stalled cucumbers swell up and turn deep green almost overnight. It is like hitting the turbo button on your plant's production line. While potassium is your best friend during the fruiting stage, there is another nutrient that can become your worst enemy if used at the wrong time, and that is nitrogen. Nitrogen is the fuel that makes leaves and vines grow rapidly. We definitely want a lot of it early in the season when the plant is small and needs to establish its structure. But once your plant starts producing heavy clusters of yellow flowers and tiny cucumbers, giving it a high nitrogen fertilizer is a fatal mistake. If you apply heavy nitrogen now, the plant will get confused. It will immediately drop its flowers and go back into leaf-building mode. You will end up with a magnificent, towering wall of dark green foliage, but absolutely zero cucumbers to pick. This is why you must switch your feeding strategy mid-season. Stop using fresh manure or high-nitrogen blood meal once the main flowering begins. Instead, focus entirely on phosphorus and potassium-based feeds, like the wood ash we just talked about, or a good organic bone meal. By cutting off the excess nitrogen, you are sending a clear biological signal to the plant that it is time to stop building the factory and start churning out the final product. Understanding this timing changes everything. Have you ever bitten into a beautifully green, perfect-looking cucumber only to spit it out because it tastes as bitter as medicine? This is a heartbreaking problem for many gardeners, and it usually stems from a combination of stress and a lack of available calcium. The bitterness comes from a compound called cucurbitacin, which the plant produces as a defense mechanism when it is highly stressed. The most common cause of this stress is wild fluctuations in soil moisture. If your soil goes from bone dry to totally flooded back to bone dry, the roots panic, and they cannot absorb calcium properly, even if there is plenty of it in the earth. Calcium is the building block that keeps the cell walls strong and the fruit tasting sweet. To prevent this bitter disaster, you must maintain perfectly even, consistent moisture under that thick layer of mulch we discussed earlier. Furthermore, you can give your plants a slow-release calcium boost by crushing up dry eggshells into a fine powder and working it into the top layer of the soil early in the season. Consistent watering and steady calcium absorption will guarantee that every single cucumber you harvest is sweet, crisp, and perfectly refreshing, without a hint of bitterness. Here is a brilliant, lazy gardening trick that most people completely ignore. Cucumbers hate harsh, whipping winds. Because they have huge, broad leaves and relatively delicate vines, Strong winds can physically damage the plant, snap the tendrils, and drastically lower the temperature around the leaves. Constant wind also causes the soil and the leaves to dry out way too fast, forcing the plant to close its pores and stop growing. To solve this, you need to think about creating a protective microclimate around your cucumber beds. You do not need expensive structures for this. You can simply use smart companion planting. By planting a solid row of tall, sturdy crops like sweet corn or sunflowers on the windward side of your cucumber trellis, you create a natural, living windbreak. This living wall buffers the harsh winds and traps the ambient heat and humidity right where the cucumbers need it most. It creates a tiny, tropical oasis in the middle of your garden. The cucumbers will thrive in this calm, humid pocket of air, growing significantly faster and producing more fruit than vines that are left exposed to the open, drying winds. Plus, you get a bonus harvest of delicious sweet corn. Let us tackle the inevitable invasion of garden pests, specifically the tiny destructive aphids that love to cluster on the undersides of your cucumber leaves. These little vampires suck the sap right out of the plant, causing the leaves to curl, turn black, and eventually die. The worst thing you can do is reach for a harsh chemical pesticide. Not only does it poison your future food, but it also kills the beneficial insects that are trying to help you. Instead, use the smart, natural approach. The moment you spot the first aphid colony, mix up a gentle spray of water and a few drops of pure, natural liquid soap. The soap completely breaks down the soft exterior of the aphids on contact, solving the problem without leaving any toxic residue. But the real lazy secret is recruiting an army of natural predators. By planting bright, pollen-rich flowers like marigolds, sweet alyssum, or dill right at the base of your cucumber trellis, you will attract hordes of ladybugs and parasitic wasps. These good bugs will patrol your vines day and night, devouring thousands of aphids before they ever become a serious threat. Let nature do the pest control for you while you sit back and relax. Even with perfect airflow and careful watering, late summer often brings the dreaded powdery mildew. It starts as tiny, innocent-looking white spots on the older leaves, and within a week, it looks like someone dumped a bag of white flour all over your plants. The leaves wither, photosynthesis stops, and your harvest comes to a grinding halt. You cannot cure a leaf once it is fully covered in mildew, so the secret is early prevention. We are going to use a surprisingly simple kitchen recipe to create an invisible shield on the leaves. Mix 1 part regular milk, either whole or skim, with 9 parts water, and add a tiny spoonful of baking soda. Spray this mixture generously on both the top and the bottom of the cucumber leaves early in the morning on a sunny day. The proteins in the milk interact with the sunlight to create a mild antiseptic effect, while the baking soda changes the alkaline balance on the leaf surface, making it absolutely impossible for the fungal spores to take root and grow. If you spray this natural armor on your plants once every 10 days starting in midsummer, you will completely bypass the powdery mildew season and keep your vines green and productive right up until the first frost. You can have the biggest, greenest vines in the world, covered in hundreds of beautiful yellow flowers. But if you do not have proper pollination, you will get absolutely zero cucumbers. Understanding your specific plant is crucial here. If you bought parthenocarpic seeds, you are incredibly lucky, because these modern varieties do not need bees at all. They produce female flowers that magically develop into seedless cucumbers all by themselves. But if you are growing traditional heirloom varieties, you absolutely rely on insects to move the pollen from the male flower to the female flower. The female flower is easy to spot because it has a tiny miniature cucumber right behind the petals. If you notice these baby cucumbers shriveling up and falling off before they grow, it means the bees are not doing their job. You need to step in and become the bee. Just take a small, soft paintbrush, gently swirl it inside the center of a male flower to collect the yellow pollen, and then brush it directly into the center of the female flower. It takes only a few seconds, but this simple act of manual pollination guarantees that the fruit will set and grow rapidly. It is the ultimate insurance policy for a massive yield. One of the most surprising secrets to getting a massive, continuous harvest is understanding the psychology of the cucumber plant. The plant's only biological goal in life is to produce mature seeds to reproduce itself. Once a cucumber is allowed to stay on the vine, get huge, and turn yellow, the plant thinks its life mission is complete. It sends a hormonal signal down the vine to stop producing new flowers, and the entire plant begins to shut down. This is why the lazy habit of leaving big cucumbers on the vine ruins your season. To hack this system and force endless production, you must harvest your cucumbers while they are still young, relatively small, and bright green. You need to get out there and pick them every single day. By constantly removing the young fruits, you are frustrating the plant's ultimate goal. The plant reacts by panicking and throwing out even more flowers and even more baby cucumbers in a desperate attempt to make seeds. It becomes a relentless production machine. Picking smaller cucumbers every 24 hours will literally triple your total yield compared to waiting for a few giant, tough, and watery cucumbers at the end of the week. Frequent picking equals endless growing. When the peak of summer hits, and temperatures skyrocket past 90 degrees Fahrenheit for days on end, your cucumbers are going to face extreme heat stress. You will walk out to the garden in the afternoon and see all the large leaves drooping sadly, looking as if the plant is completely dead and out of water. Your first instinct will be to grab the hose and flood the roots immediately. Stop right there. This afternoon drooping is actually a brilliantly clever defense mechanism. The plant temporarily closes its pores and droops its leaves to reduce surface area and stop moisture loss during the hottest part of the day. If you check the soil under the mulch and it is still damp, do not add more water. Flooding the hot soil can actually boil the roots and invite instant root rot. Just wait until the sun goes down. As the evening cools, the plant will magically perk right back up, looking crisp and healthy again. If you want to help them survive these brutal heat waves, rig up a temporary shade cloth above the trellis to block the harshest midday sun. A 50% shade cloth can drop the temperature around the leaves by 10 degrees, saving the plant enormous amounts of energy and preventing fruit drop. By the time late August rolls around, most cucumber vines look terrible. The bottom half of the stem is completely bare, brown, and ugly, and all the fresh growth and new cucumbers are way up at the very top of your trellis, out of reach. Most people just pull the plants at this point and give up. But there is a spectacular advanced technique called vine lowering that can extend your harvest for another full month. Because we pruned the lower leaves earlier, you have a long, flexible section of bare stem at the bottom. Carefully untie the top of your string from the trellis and gently lower the whole plant down by about 2 feet. Take that bare bottom stem, carefully coil it on top of the soil, and bury it under a fresh mound of rich compost and mulch. Now, retie the string so the top of the plant is supported again. Here is the magic part. That bare stem you just buried will sprout an entirely new, massive root system into the fresh compost. The plant gets a massive surge of new energy. The top growth explodes with fresh green leaves, and a whole new wave of flowers will appear. You have essentially tricked an old, tired vine into becoming a young, vigorous seedling all over again. We have reached the final and most powerful secret for sustaining a massive yield without spending a single dime on expensive chemical fertilizers. I am talking about the ultimate lazy gardener's weed tea. Throughout the summer, weeds like stinging nettle, comfrey, and dandelions will inevitably pop up around your yard. Instead of throwing them away, harvest them and stuff them tightly into a large plastic bucket. Fill the bucket to the very top with rainwater, put a loose lid on it, and let it sit in a warm, sunny corner of the yard for about 3 weeks. It is going to ferment, and yes, it is going to smell absolutely terrible. But this foul-smelling dark liquid is pure organic gold for your cucumbers. It extracts all the deep trace minerals, potassium, and beneficial microbes that those deep-rooted weeds pulled from the earth. When it is ready, dilute 1 cup of this powerful dark tea into a large watering can of fresh water and pour it around the base of your cucumber vines once a week. This homemade elixir provides an immediate, easily digestible nutrient rush that synthetic fertilizers simply cannot match. It builds incredible soil health, fights off disease, and ensures your buckets are overflowing with crisp cucumbers. And there you have it, the ultimate lazy system for growing more cucumbers than you will ever know what to do with. By simply refusing to till your soil, utilizing the power of a vertical string trellis, and applying smart pruning and natural feeding, you transform a frustrating chore into a highly rewarding harvest. The true climax of this entire journey is realizing that the best results come not from fighting nature, but from understanding it. Whether it is tricking the plant into endless production by picking fruits early, or magically resurrecting an old vine by burying its stem in late summer, proper care today literally saves you weeks of heartache in the future. I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me in the garden today. If these lazy gardening secrets have inspired you, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like so we can keep bringing you the best high-yield growing tips. Now I have a question for you. What is the biggest struggle you have ever faced when trying to grow cucumbers in your own backyard? Let me know down in the comments below, and let us share our gardening experiences together.